social emotional learning is not a book smart.
And I think what we're doing right now is we're learning it and then we're teaching it. I should say we're reading it and then teaching it instead of learning it and then teaching it.
Oh, we're reading a curriculum, teaching a curriculum, but how do we apply it? How do we actually live it? I don't know how to help a child that just got triggered if I don't accept my own triggers.
If you want to raise the bar on your growth, whether it's personal or professional, this is the podcast for you. And now, the host, Juan Alvarado.
So welcome to this episode of the Relevant Development Podcast. I have a great guest today, Dr. Sonia Toledo. I just want to say thank you for joining me here today.
You don't know how excited I am to be here. I am so thrilled. I've been listening to your podcast, and let me tell you, I have also used you as like, I need some motivation. I need some like positive today. And it's been those days, and you're just like right on point.
Oh, thank you.
So
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So first off, your accolades of like, because we see the DR in front of the name. So tell us a little bit about your, like what you do currently. And then I just want to hear your achievements. We'll get to the background and stuff, but I want to know where you are today and the achievements that you have so far.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have, my whole life, I've been working for youth development. And as I got through my educational journey, even when I did my master's, I did my thesis on after school, on quality after school. And I received my doctorate from National University in 2021. And I have my doctorate in education, specializing on global training and development. My career started working directly with programs. So I've had all the titles in after-school environments and summer programs from SYEP, Summer Youth Employment in New York City, to counselor, to coordinator, to director, to multi-site. I also was a vice president of youth development at a YMCA for a few years. I've always overseen direct services for K-12. And in 1995, I started working for an organization in New York called Child Care Inc. And they charged me with helping youth organizations know about the regulations for New York State rather. But my focus is in New York City. So I started training and development, where I started creating programs for leadership and management for directors that are overseeing after-school programs in New York City. So here in the state of New York, you are required to take certain amount of training every 2 years as a supervisor in order to maintain your license. So I started doing that in 1995. And then in 2008, I founded Dignity of Children. Dignity of Children is my baby, where I realized that training staff together in a site created more of a cultural shifting in the location versus sending staff out so they could learn individually and then come back and teach the rest, which was back then one of the trends. So I started Dignity of Children doing site-based training in all of the fundamentals that are needed, from safety, health, child development, project-based learning, all of those fundamentals in after school. And I'm still doing that. And that's pretty much one of my key, my key programs that people know me for. But leadership and management has been my niche, because working with after-school supervisors, I know that I'm able to really support them in not only the structural part of management, but also the mindset. And that's where the leadership comes in. It's like, what's your mindset to go and create an environment where young people thrive and you give them the opportunity for exploration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My dissertation was on the correlation between emotional intelligence and workplace stress. And through this journey, of research, I realized that there no research has been focused on the emotional intelligence of supervisors or after school period. There's a lot of research on corporate, and there's a lot of research on the health industry as well as the education industry. So there's more in corporate, and the health and education is like moving up there, looking at it as this is important for delivering quality service. So I was able to use this research to really look at, well, an after school program, if we have a supervisor that has high emotional intelligence, then their workplace stress seems lower. And that's the result of the dissertation, is that people who have emotional intelligence could perceive stress, but not at a high level, but at a lower level. And it goes vice versa. If they have low emotional intelligence, they perceive stress high. So one of the clear indicators, predictors of the research is that self-management, and wellness indicates high stress or low stress. I could really relate to that when I'm not taking care of myself and I have a lot on my plate. I am most likely going to feel much more stressful while I'm doing what I'm getting done.
So you're talking about your dissertation with this, and congratulations, 15 years on what is it called, the dignity
of children.
Dignity of children. So congratulations on 15 years of that. So how many do you have staff under you that help teach these things and go to different schools and locations and things like that?
Yes, throughout the years, I've trained people to do the curriculum that I've designed. So yeah, to spread it out, there's times, especially during right before the summer or right now during the beginning of the school year, we go to a lot of organizations. So we're spread out all over New York City conducting training on the basics.
How many people or organizations, if that number is easier for you?
Yeah.
Do you think you've directly impacted with your training and your knowledge?
Oh, thank you so much for that. Now, I think over maybe 300 organizations in the city, and thousands of directors and thousands of line staff. So it all depends. Like I have organizations that have over 30 programs across the city.
Wow.
There are organizations that have 50 programs across the city. So they hire me to do leadership and management with their supervisors. So I'm in a room with maybe 30 people that supervise different locations. So a lot of the work that I focus on, like I said, is the leadership and then giving them the most latest trends and information, especially on 21st century learning.
I know for me, I love the leadership piece and the management piece. Why leadership, one, in management, and kind of this dissertation, like what got you to that point, why there, and then specifically why after school program?
Oh, well, after school program, especially, is like my heart. First of all, that's all I've ever done. So part of it is like I've worked in after school starting at 16, and then I would leave to so-called have a real job, and then we'll go back to after school and then get into another position, and I just remained in after school. But after school has been, for me, it is, especially for our low-income communities, our communities in need, after school is the nucleus of helping our communities thrive. Because there is where not only do we have programming for youth, but we also have the support systems. A lot of organizations have created like a well-rounded resource for families, from social service to, even a food pantry or clothes drive or just resource information. And parents, just knowing that parents feel comfortable and feel trusting with the after school staff. That's why after school is very critical for me. Let me take it personally. I am a single mom of two. Oh, I got a little choky there. Two young men. And I brought them up in Harlem, New York. And let me tell you that was my, my second parent. I was able to, know that my kids, both of my sons, learn who they were inside out. I have one very, I call him my businessman. He's my very logical, very organized businessman. And he loves his sports, his football. And then I have the creative soul where his art, is everything. Even now you see the difference, but they were able to explore themselves in the after school environment and summer camp. That was my backbone.
So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned single mother Harlem, and then we have Dr. Toledo. Like, you speak and teach on leadership. What was life like back then, and how did you lead your way for your future?
Oh, thank you. It is so awesome to do this kind of reflection because you're right. As a single mom, I speak about my stories and my sons through my whole journey of training all these years. I have directors that have gone through the pipe, elevating themselves, and they come back to me. They come back to me as like, you are the one that set me straight, because I tell my story. As a single mom, I was in my late 20s and I had my 4 and a 5-year-old. I decided to go back to school to get my master's degree. And like I said, what supported me was the after school program or the youth program, because I was able to, there was a Saturday program while I was in school, the after school program, my kids were I know that they were safe, right? Until I got home, because I'm the only one that they have. And doing my journey with education while I'm struggling as a single mom, I was that parent that was running in 15 minutes late to pick up my kid constantly. never read the notices. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to do something. What I found was that the staff was very compassionate with me. We got you, Sonia. Here's the notice. Don't forget tomorrow, Javon needs this and Christopher needs that. And, I was that kind of parent. And I have to do a couple of stories, because the one moment that I really shifted in understanding that I'm a professional in the field, my youngest son was diagnosed with learning disability. I also have a learning disability. And, so I struggled through my K-12 all the time. I still struggle. I was really stressed that year because he had to repeat the year in second grade. And I went up to the teacher and I said, listen, we have this vacation plan that we're going to Grand Canyon and to Las Vegas. And should I stay home so he could do summer school? Like, what am I going to do? And she's like, no, your job is to make sure sustain his self-esteem. And my job is to teach him how to read. Let me do my job and you do your job. Go on vacation and have every opportunity to read, but enjoy it while you're doing it. And by the way, do you know he's an artist? And that blew me away, because even though I was working with kids all this time, what she said to me really honed in on the value that I was missing. And many of us miss it. It's his self-esteem and his talent. Do you know he's an artist? And I'm like, oh my God, Christopher is an artist today, Awesome. And through my journey, I just have this passion to really, I wish parents have the skills and knowledge that I have. What I understand about children or about relationships or about development, I want all our parents to have it. So the avenue for me was leadership.
Mm.
Leadership in all the programs is really why I feel that's like a little specialness for me, because again, it's about the culture that the children are in, where they feel that freedom, they feel that connection, they feel that someone is listening to them, they feel the opportunity to express themselves. That's what I want.
Right.
That's the juice of a great after school program. And then all the other stuff is just like, the confetti.
Does your leadership change at all, leading two boys as a single mom and then being a leader in the after school program? Or does it change? Because I know for me, I talk about this in different keynotes that I do, but it's hard to transition the two, because, leaders will lead all the time, but sometimes we have an issue on turning off the work leader and then turning on the parent leader.
Yeah.
Was that an easy or hard thing for you to do, to switch on and off?
I did bring the after school, or let's say the child development knowledge and the understanding to my home of what children need. And I'm very close to both of my son. One of them has a little baby girl, and he's totally in love, right? And the other one's married, and we have a close relationship. And one of the things that I know is that I focused on communication, we need to know how to communicate anything to each other. So for me, trust was really big in the home, that we need to trust each other and believe in each other so we could grow together. I believe in values. So we spoke a lot about values, and, really quickly, like even now, my son, Christopher, the creative wild guy, I will say, he has his motorcycle and he's like, "Mom, you should see my gear. I have elbow pads and wrist pads and a helmet and a big jacket and knee pads and shin pads." And I get on my ear, because you taught me what safety looks like. He reminds me constantly. He's like, "And I'm going safe. Don't worry about it. I'm doing it safe." But the value of safety was installed, especially because they were two young men.
Mm.
And I mean, I think it would have been different for girls, but I wouldn't know because I don't have girls. But with two young men, all I kept thinking was, you're going to get yourself in situations. You're going to explore, you're going to be curious, but there's always something telling you, listen to your instincts. When your instinct says, okay, wait a minute, is this safe for me? Because, we're going to try, as teenagers, we're going to try. We're going to go. And that's what I wanted them to be cognitive of themselves, and know that safety was a value. Self-love was a value that we talked about a lot. And of course, just to be able to communicate to anyone, just be able to clearly communicate. So I did bring a lot of those skills at home, but being in the field, mostly my last 30 years have been in teaching and workshops. I'm pretty straightforward. I would tell you how it is. This is real. This is, you have no time to like, oh, but so and so. No, handle it. Because the problem is that, and I love to quote, "Be weary of the naked man offering you his shirt." Maya Angelou. We are teaching children social emotional learning, but we don't have those skills. That's a problem, right? Social emotional learning is not a book smart.
Right. And I think what we're doing right now is we're learning it and then we're teaching it.
Yeah.
I mean, I should say we're reading it and then teaching it instead of learning it and then teaching it.
Oh, love it. Exactly. We're reading a curriculum, teaching a curriculum, but how do we apply it?
Mm-hmm.
How do we actually live it? I don't know how to help a child that just got triggered if I don't accept my own triggers or even know my own triggers.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? And many adults get triggered by kids, which means that you're something triggered inside of you, that there's something to look at.
Right. Yep.
Right. So we don't operate that way. It's like, let me reflect on why that upsets me so much.
Yep.
Right. And then because it's not about that child or that adult, it's about me. I'm the one triggered. Right. But in saying that, it's not that it's your fault or that you can't handle the situation. It's about if you handle the situation, assess how you handled it, and then do some self-reflection to say, hey, is this something that I need to look at? Because, going deep inside of me, every time I come across this situation, I lose it.
Right.
I lose my scribbles. and it's not effective. Right. So if I don't know how to do that, if I don't know how to self-regulate, I can't teach a child how to self-regulate.
Right.
So what we do is we control the behavior. So we expect children to tell us why they behaved the way they did when they got no rationale during a trigger. And then we just stop the behavior. We don't go anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So I really am passionate about, like, how do we cultivate a culture where people, everyone, is conscious through values, through the sense of emotional intelligence and social intelligence, and say, how are we demonstrating to our kids how to relate with each other in a way that we honor ourselves and grow?
Mm. That's a big key. And grow.
And grow.
And grow. Right. Where do you think this passion comes from with the emotional intelligence and trying to become that better leader for our kids? Where do you think that passion comes from? Because after school program is a niche.
It's a niche
within itself.
Yeah.
But then the emotional intelligence and being a leader is even more niche. Now, why this niche in emotional intelligence and wanting to get down to those understanding triggers and helping kids, social emotional learning? Where does that stem from?
Woo, you're getting deep. Juan, I appreciate you. See, it stems from my own childhood.
Mm.
I really understand that a lot of my growth now is because I'm working the emotional intelligence. I'm applying it. But let me tell you, there were many years where I didn't have a clue. I was lost, and lost in the sake of relationships, lost in feeling worthy, capable.
Wow.
I mentioned that I also have a learning disability, and throughout my whole even when I was in school, in college, in my master's and whatever, I really had anxiety about writing. Like, my anxiety, just even thinking about it, would just go so high on, am I writing good enough? Am I doing it right? But I got bullied. I got bullied at home. I got compared with my my peers. She's smarter than you. My sister's like, I hate when she does this. I have a twin sister, and the comparison at home was unbelievable. It was, we did have a very strong educational value at home because my mom migrated from Dominican Republic, did a pit stop in Puerto Rico, had my sister and I, and then came to the Bronx, New York, right? So basically she had 7. There's 7 of us. Liz and I are the youngest, and it's like school. And my mom, her education went up to 6th grade. She was like, I'm going to look at your grades A, B, or C, or D, sometimes F for me. How much your attendance, it had to be 0, and your lateness had to be 0. Those are the ground rules from my mom. High grades, attendance, and tardiness. None. You had no excuse for not being in school, no excuse for being late, and you had to do, you had to have your studies. Sonia wasn't really good with I remember in elementary school, the first 3 were reading, writing, and comprehension, something like that. And it would be you, unsatisfactory, unsatisfactory. And then my sister Liz was always like 3 grades ahead of her capacity in writing and reading and etc. So there was like this huge comparison. I was always feeling like I'm not smart enough. So that really stemmed in my self-worth throughout my teenager, my young adult, in short, relationships. I'm also a survivor of sexual abuse. And for me, relationship is like I'm figuring it out every day. Right. Every day I'm figuring it out. And even like today, there's real clear, like, I heard something just recently that, your disrespect to yourself stems on when you eat something that is not good for you. You're disrespecting yourself. When you do something that it's not good for you, you're disrespecting yourself. No one taught me how to respect myself.
Oh.
So in the activities that I was having as a young adult, it was only the activities just crying out loud, saying,
right.
Somebody help me.
Right.
I would always pull myself out. I was one that will go through that edge, like I mentioned before, and find like is like, okay, now pull back. That you went too far. Now pull back. So I was able to do it for myself, but I taught myself. I was self-taught. Going to school, of course, allowed me to learn the books, emotional intelligence, right? I'm a total geek when it comes down to self-development, right? And self-development for me was all about my kids. If there was anything that I could do, is if I do it for me, I'm doing it for them.
Right, right.
In order to shift the chaos that I had in my life for my sons, learning from teachers, sharing with me, do you know that every time you bring Jovan to school late, he has a bad day? And I'm like, oh, that affects him. Don't got nothing to do with me, but my craziness impacts him.
Right.
Right. And
the road to school, right? Because I got this growing up too. Hurry up, let's go. You're gonna and that's how you're gonna send your kid off to be primed to learn. Hurry up, I'm gonna kick your don't make me and I've caught myself as a dad, right? We talked about this prior to a couple weeks ago when we were talking about, I have 3 boys, and you said that, you had your 2 boys, but I catch myself doing that. Like, don't do what mom did to you, right? And trying to be that chain breaker, because there's times I'm like, you know what, it's disappointing that you're not ready and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, he's going to be real thrilled to learn. Yes. But it's crazy. I love the fact that you took that ownership of, like, I have to be good for this. I mean, kind of a cliche saying, but I got to be good for me. So then there can be a good we, right? So what I put in me is going to be a better we in that family dynamic. I could see now where, thank you for painting such a great picture of why this is so important to you. So where are we today in, like, your research or your training in this industry?
Awesome. I got an article published by After School Matters journal in the spring of 2023, this past spring. So that article is out there, and it's on the correlation. So it's basically just exposing the conversation. It's basically saying, hey, this is an opportunity for us to look at. Let's see what the corporate world is doing. They're bringing emotional intelligence as a priority for employee development. And they're thinking about doing certain adjustments in the workday, in the culture, to support the well-being of employees. Schools, education is looking at it, and so is the medical field is looking at it. Nursing and doctors, their services, they just are better. They serve better when they have emotional intelligence. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at youth development. Let's take a look at the people who are out there really being with our children every day and probably making more of an impact than some of the other adults that children are come in contact with on a daily basis. Because during that nucleus time of youth development or after school, it's, our young people or our young adults are really like making direct impact with our young people, saying, look, I know what you like. I know what you like to do. I see that you're an artist. I see that you love sports. They're looking at them from the inside out. They're experiencing them holistically, not just as an academic, being. So with all that, I really want to say that we have a lot to do. We have more research to look into. We have more to figure out in the youth development field on what does it mean to support the supervisor and in turn the staff, right? Because
Right.
I'm just starting from the person that's going to set the tone for the environment, for the culture. When they don't have a grounding on themselves, it's very difficult to train staff.
Right.
I went ahead of myself. Let's not even talk about training staff. Let's talk about just managing staff, developing staff, helping staff just create classroom culture, right? So the turnkey from a supervisor to, even if they do trainings, how do they then take that training and turnkey it, transfer it to practice? How do they take the knowledge of training and transfer it to practice? If the supervisor doesn't know how to do that or doesn't see the value of doing that, we're struggling.
Right.
The program would struggle, and mostly culture-wise, I really feel is about creating a culture where parents are welcome, where children are seen for their individuality, for, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
the culture is all part of who the leader is. So that's why I want to aim for the supervisors, but we have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
We still got to figure it out.
It makes sense to start there because I don't know why this analogy came up, but it's almost like somebody watching a video on travel, right? And you talked about the Dominican Republic. I've been there a couple times, and it's like if somebody was to watch a video and say, "Oh, when you travel, make sure you do these 3 things," right? Because I saw this video. But I'd rather take the person's word for it that's actually gone there and traveled and said, "Hey, when you land, this is going to happen at the airport. Make sure you," because they have an insight that the person that just watched the video on doesn't know about. They know, like, it's almost like, just to compare it, that's probably more relatable to a lot of people. It's the difference between book smart and street smarts, right? It's like, I can read a book about going to Brooklyn. However, you're going to know and give me a lot better advice traveling to Brooklyn and say, look, Juan, these are the places to eat. Don't eat these places. Don't travel at this time, or it's easier to take this, this road of transportation than it is this, like, because you're currently and have gone through it. So when we tell trainers or we try to tell staff, hey, do this, how am I supposed to give that information or teach that if I don't even know what that's like to go through that stuff?
Yes.
Right. So it's one thing to read and teach as opposed to read, learn, apply, learn again, make adjustments, get the real life, and then go and teach.
Yes. Or learn with our kids.
Right. And go through it together. Right. And there's a saying, in order to grow in something, you need to go through something.
Yes.
So yeah, me and my kids, or my wife and I will learn that much better and grow a better connection if we were to learn together and go through it together. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So let me tell you, we after the article, I sent out a survey this summer, nationally, and we have over 1,200 responses
Wow.
across the country, from Alaska to Texas to California, Wisconsin. I mean, everywhere. And I am so excited to take this data, and basically it's just inquiring, would you like emotional intelligence training? Do you think it's necessary? Where are you struggling as a manager? How do you think emotional intelligence will support your work? These basic questions are just going to give data information so I could push back out to organizations across the country again to say, this is what the supervisor is saying. So now what? Now what could we do collectively? What could we start building? I'm always available for leadership training or emotional intelligence training, but I don't think training is enough. Training is not enough. Just like what we just spoke about, like transfer of knowledge, we need to think about what's the culture going to feel like for our programs, caring for our leadership in the programs. Our supervisors help make sure that these programs are, conducive for our kids to grow in.
Right. Of course, you don't have those results yet because the survey's still out there, correct?
The survey's still out. September 30th is our deadline. And I'm thinking, all right, 1,200 already. Oh, wow. I'm blown away. I'm really blown away.
So is that something that we could push here? Like if people are in, and it's for the educational after school program arena,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So we have a couple followers there on the podcast that are in that arena. Do you mind giving us a link to it, and we can put it in the show notes? And if they're wanting to participate in that survey, they can click on the link to do so. That'd be great to give you the data, some more data regarding that. Off the top of your head, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, do you have like a sample question or something that the survey asks? Just trying to get my mind frame around like what specifically you're looking for, and just give us kind of like a taste tester of what a question or two might be.
Yeah. So one of the questions, do you think emotional intelligence is valuable for the work you do? We gave them options, well-being, managing your day-to-day, having a support system for your own emotional needs, learning about wellness skills for yourself, having time for yourself. So we gave them a list of things that they could choose from on what they believe was necessary for them to do their work better. That's one question. We also talked in the management piece, like, what are your challenges? What are the biggest challenges that you have? And let me tell you, so far, I find that training staff and developing staff was the number one.
Yeah.
And also managing the risks of the community. Many of them are in communities that are violent, that are difficult with, the environment. So a lot of that comes into the program. Of course, we've been having these problems all along, but I feel in the youth development field, we're always growing. That is one thing that I have to say, that we've come a long way of continuously looking at how could we support these environments that are critical for the development of our kids, especially in low-income communities and communities of need. I would like to be able to use this data to have organizations well-informed, possibly change some structures. And let me give you one structure. And I'm not sure if many organizations operate like this, but you have one director who's responsible for the school year from September to June. And then they're also responsible for the summer. So while they're doing the school year, they're preparing for the summer. They have 1 week to do training, or 1 week to prepare for the summer in between the closing of the school and the startup of the summer.
Yeah.
And in that year, they're breaking one down while they're starting up another program. And then in the fall, they may have 2 weeks before the fall starts.
Right.
It's a constant.
Yeah.
It's like they
There's
don't.
there's no break. There's no cutoff of one and cutoff of the other until one ends and one starts. But as far as the planning and the prep and the mind frame and the training and the hiring and everything else, there's a huge overlap on both ends.
You're always on. So that to me is an example. Let's look at that. When I was working at the YMCA at one point, I shift that structure to have 2 leaders. You have your director and your assistant, and the assistant was the one running the summer, and they support the leader throughout the year. So in other words, the assistant is maybe like curriculum, working with curriculum development or working with staff support, but not having the responsibility of it all. Right. But then they were able to prepare for the summer. So then, so now the director is now second and the assistant is first during the summer to alleviate some of the tension that comes with, overseeing this constant of programming.
And it's not a power shift, it's a responsibility shift. And it helps that assistant now have the tools needed that when and if that leader leaves or another position opens, we've now trained that person to move up. I think a lot of places, not just in the nonprofit after school program space, but in corporate and in school districts across the board, you have some leaders that are afraid to do that because they're afraid that someone is going to take over or do a job better. And now they have become, it starts a bad leadership trait in, I don't want to be in somebody's shadow. I don't want somebody better than me. So let me keep them in their place. Or I don't want to train this person because now they're going to know more than me. And I think a big thing, getting ready to do the second level of management and leadership, that good leaders understand that the higher you go up, the less you know. The higher you go up, the least amount of decisions that you should be making, and the least that you know less, right? So like a CEO is not going to know and understand how to train line staff.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. And if they do, your hand is in that cookie jar. Get out. You should be making CEO decisions. You shouldn't be making decisions here, right? About training, location, uniforms, or what structure, whatever you have as you go up. Looking at the books behind you, if we were to stack them top to bottom, not left to right, in order for one to get higher, you have to put another one underneath. Yes. So if you want to move up, start to delegate, start to train, and start the need of somebody else that you can train. And then why would you not want to make less decisions? Like, it's less stress for you. It is the shift of now I'm not on summer. I'm on assist mode. Because then you're able to rest. You're able to tap into that emotional intelligence. And now you're able to see things at that 1,000-foot level that you wouldn't have been able to see before, because your mind is trying to help everything and everyone out, as opposed to, let me just sit and watch and see where I'm needed. I found that. And then I found too that the more questions that you ask, or the questions and the quality of the questions that you ask will show where your heart is, right? If I was to come in and say, where's the budget at? Where's the budget at? Where's the budget at?
Yeah.
My heart and my desire, my value is on the budget. But if I ask, how are you doing? Where do you need your help? How can I assist you today? Now my value is in the person as opposed to, the policy or the procedure. So great leaders should understand it's okay to know less. Like iPhone 15, whatever just came out. Do you think the CEO or the president is making those decisions about what color it is and what kind of camera? No, he's got other people to do that stuff. I just think we need more secure, confident leaders in that space to say, The emotional intelligence is where I need to be. And if someone comes under me or surpasses me in this knowledge, it's okay. Like, my title is going to keep me up here. My knowledge is going to keep me up here, but I don't need to know everything. I don't.
Make sure they're well equipped,
Yes.
well resourced. You know what I mean? And what I mean by resources, not just the funds, it's about the access to information,
Right.
access to program, access to, things that they need. Or even, here's another structure that really, you hire staff, your budget fits them from 3 to 6 o'clock. They come in, if they come in 10 minutes before 3, right on the room with the kids, and then leave at 6 o'clock. When do they plan?
Right.
When do they have time to meet together as a team to create and innovate together, to bring it into the classroom, or even huddle with their teammates to build up teamwork, to build up motivation, to give each other like the rah, let's go and do this,
Right.
Those are necessary for creating good quality environments for children. But we don't put it into the budget. So we give them training once a year.
Right. I was going to say, or you have the people that are able to make the decisions, or the people who are making the decisions don't understand that level. And so they'll say no just because they want to say no, or they don't know better.
Yes.
And so the people that are making the decisions don't understand why that decision needs to be made. Hey, we don't need 3-hour staff. We need 4 or 5.5 hour staff so that they can plan. No. Well, why not? Because we've never done that before.
Exactly.
Okay, so then change it. And they don't want to. And the person that can make the decision doesn't want to, or doesn't have the guts, I'll say, to say, no, you know what? We need to make this change.
Yes.
Because, and I've talked about this before in another podcast, because that's how we've always done it. Stop that already, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if we continue to do stuff the way we used to. We don't get me started on that. Like, it would totally change. Like, we wouldn't be where we are today as a people, as a society. Like, there has to be change, right, in order to do that.
And also, duplicating the school day to the after school is a common thread, where you got these blocks of activities. So we only do social emotional learning on Tuesday at 4 and on Wednesday. It's like, social emotional learning is universal, is all the time.
Right.
All the time. We could have a lesson, right? But the emotional, the teaching of social and emotional should be in everything we do. Right? We need to be intentional about having kids do group work more often, because they're organically are learning social skills. So if we have everything done silo, like you do this and you do that, and don't you look at her and you do it on your own, we're not letting them blend and have the struggles, the resistance that comes with growth.
Right. I was just gonna say that, because you're gonna have argument. I mean, you're getting ready for the real world in the workforce. There's gonna be times where I don't agree with you, and here's the learning, social emotional learning part of it is, that's okay that you guys don't agree. I have tons of friends that I don't agree with. Yeah. And there's some friends that have said, sorry, I'm going to unfollow you or unfriend you. And it's like, well, that's too bad. But it's like sports, right? The football game Monday night to start the season off, it was like the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills. It's like, you could have friends that are fans of each one, hate each other during the game, but love each other right after. And it's like, I think we need to start to teach kids that, and adults for that matter, of like, it's okay to disagree, but just be open to hear and to try to understand. And you don't have to like it, and at least learn something different, or be open to listen to something different. That's it. You're not conforming to anything, but it allows our kids to process, right? And not solve it with, and I think it's just as bad not to solve it with a fist and fight, but also don't solve it with ignorance and just walk away and be like, la, 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 I can't hear you. I choose not to. Right. Before I let you go, I have a couple questions I'd like to ask everybody, but what is something, I kind of call this part like a freestyle. What would you want to teach somebody who's listening right now regarding maybe social emotional learning or anything regarding that?
I think from my own experience, a complete assessment of how you love yourself. Detail too, like really looking at like your day-to-day, like just assess is like when you do things that dishonor you, just take note of it. It doesn't mean that you're going to like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I'm smoking with my friends because that's what we do when we're together. But I'm not a smoker. I'm doing it for them. I'm dishonoring myself. I'm eating things that I know are not good for me. That's a dishonor to yourself. So do the assessment as detailed as possible for a lifetime. We have a tendency of self-sabotage, self-loathing, we don't like ourselves. We're not good enough. We're not this. It comes deep from childhood. It comes deep, but only with the awareness of it do we understand that we could shift the habit, the bad habit of it. Right. So I would like that for everybody is like, let's just put some attention on ourselves and learn how to self-love ourselves. Like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? So even when sometimes you are in relationships where are not really working for you and you stay with it, you stay with this relationship. And it's not to say that it's the person, it's the way you're relating with each other that's not working. So like, let me work on how I could communicate. The way you just spoke to me, it doesn't work for me. So that's how we could grow with self-love, and people will drop off because what happens is again, this is the way we always did it. So as soon as you start speaking up for yourself, that person doesn't want to be with you anymore, then they don't really know you.
Right. And that's growth. When you grow, the old something has to fall off, right? Even I live in the fruit capital of the world, and they prune trees. Yeah. And you prune the branches that aren't going to give you the fruit, and you cut those off, right? Yeah. That self-reflection. I love that. I see some books behind you. Is there any books that you recommend, things to read regarding social emotional learning or how we can become better in that area?
Well, yeah, there are quite a few. The Atomic Habit is really, when it comes down to just learning about habits, managing yourself better. I love it. Brené Brown, Brené, love her. There to lead, but let her go.
Great.
All of her books is really about, I studied her so much just to understand more about, emotions and shame and courage. She has it all. But let me tell you the book that I really, really want everyone to read, and is What Happened to You by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry. This book really outlined what trauma really is, because we have a misunderstanding of what trauma is. It's supposed to be like a big event in your life. And it's like, no, trauma for any individual is the upbringing, the environment you were brought up in. Trauma starts there, from as simple as neglect. And we have a saying that we feel like we want to get over it. So we have people that are struggling with certain things in their lives, like I mentioned, relationship with me, and it's like, get over it. No, this is a trauma from my childhood that I'm still working, because no one taught me how to have a healthy relationship. What Happened to You is a must read. If you want to go into yourself, it's great, but let's do it for our kids.
Can you give advice to our listeners before you leave? How can we raise the bar?
Love yourself. Love yourself starts first, but we have a responsibility to be good leaders.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for joining me today. Dr. Toledo, your story of just strength and being diligent in your road to success, from being a single mother to your 2 boys to working your way up through the system of, being a staff or a student in the programs, to a staff, to a manager, to director, to leading this charge on emotional intelligence. Thank you for leading yourself, and thank you for leading your boys, and thank you for leading these organizations to strive to become better. I can feel, and I heard the success that came out of the struggle, and what your struggle was not an accident. It was purpose, and even though it might have not felt like that then, your purpose and your passion is felt, hopefully through the airwaves of this podcast, but in your community, in your city, for your family, the people that you train. I want to say thank you for being authentically you today and every day. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I thank you for this opportunity, and I thank you for doing what you do, because every day I know at least I could plug in when I'm on the train and get some motivation and some reminders. And I love, I think I was like, wow, he thinks like me. He thinks like me. I love it. I love it. You break it down. Love it. Thank you.
So before we go, just a couple reminders. In the show notes, we'll have a link to your survey about emotional intelligence in the workplace. If that is your sector and that's something that you want to give some feedback in that space, please check the show notes or the description below, and you have access to that link. It's only for so long, and then I'm gonna have you back to give us those results once you've kind of filed through all those, and then you can teach us what the workforce is saying, what people are saying, what leaders are saying, and then some strategies on how can we take this full force and have it work for us and not against us. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds like an amazing plan. I am so looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Juan.
Well, thank you so much. That is it. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Relevant Development Podcast with Dr. Toledo. This is Juan Alvarado saying thank you. And if you want to take yourself to the next level, make sure that you raise that bar and pull yourself up to the next level. You can't get to that next level unless you raise that bar. God bless you. We'll see you on the next episode.